I showed up at the start of 2020, which was a great year for Melbourne because, as you remember, many exciting things happened in 2020. One of them, obviously, being that the whole world locked down.
So sometimes when I'm putting this show together, and if you're new here, if you don't know what this show is, hello, my name's Kay Anderson, and this is Lost Spaces, the show that explores queer experiences through the lens of lost queer spaces. Sometimes when I'm putting it together, I like to imagine that someone like 50, 100, 150 years from now has come across this RSS feed and is listening to all the episodes and having a bit of a chuckle about the fact that we have all these really old-timey, quaint, old world views and yeah, like hopefully the queer movement has moved on and they find it really weird that anyone would feel shame about being queer or anything like that. But anyway, if you are one of those people, hello, thank you for finding the show and I hope you get a kick out of it. And it's also probably worthwhile letting you know, if you do happen to be one of these people from the future, that in the early 2020s, there was this thing called the COVID-19 pandemic. And this was hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime event where a highly contagious disease was sweeping the globe. And so we were all made to stay in our houses for a good chunk of time to try and slow down the spread. And that was around about 2 years. And it was especially tough because we didn't know when it was going to end. And we kept having these false starts where we were told we were allowed out. And then our governments were like, oh no, sorry, spoke too soon. Get back in your houses. Lock your doors. Anyway, I tell you all of this because this week's guest, actor, singer, cabaret artist Jens Radda, had just moved to the city of Melbourne from Sydney, Australia, when the pandemic broke out. And so it had this really significant influence on how he settled into the city, how he made friends, and how he filled his days. And because of all of that, the periods of freedom, for want of a better word, that he got in between lockdowns were this really precious and exciting and significant time to him because he got to go outside of his house, obviously, and he got to go to queer spaces like the Rainbow House Club and be with other queers. So, why don't we hear more about those times from Jens himself? Let's get into it.
Lockdown, there would be this celebratory energy of those who just needed to get out and see other humans. We went to places like Rainbow. There was one night I remember, it was before one of the lockdowns, and each lockdown was a whole different vibe. But this one in particular, they gave us, I don't know, it was like 48 hours notice or something, or 24 hours notice. And so it was from midnight on Thursday night, we're locking down.
Oh, wow.
The insanity of this is that Rainbow was packed. Everyone went and we were all just like embracing each other and celebrating. And then at the strike of midnight, the Queen hosting said, guys, that's it. Go home. See you in a few weeks or a few months. Who knows how long it'll be. But the craziness, we were all like, this is insane because we should really be social distancing. No one should be seeing each other. But we were desperate. At this point, it's like lockdown 5 or something. We're just desperate for connection. We were all just there and we're like, whatever happens, at least we've got our community and we got to spend these last few hours together. See you guys later. And then everyone dissipated and 10 minutes later, the venue was completely empty. The streets were empty and it was cricket sounds for weeks, which was, I remember that night was very special. Yeah.
So let's talk about the pandemic. So first of all, I tended to ignore talking about the pandemic on this show because I wanted it to be this like joyous celebration of going out. And so for ages and ages, I just pretended that the pandemic didn't happen. And I'm now kind of at a point where I'm like, yeah, it did happen. I need to acknowledge it happened and it had a big impact on people. And all of that is to say, I would really like to know what it was like from your perspective, being fresh in this new city, bubbling with ambition and ideas and curiosity, to then suddenly be like, oh, I can't actually establish myself here because I'm locked in a house.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I was like bubbling with this energy to go out and do things, and being locked in a house was hard. But at the same time, I started practicing drag makeup, which, lockdown was very helpful to a lot of people with practicing crafts. And
I think, doubled the number of drag queens in the world, I hear.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, I hate to consider myself a lockdown queen because I have been doing makeup and hosting and performing for years before that. It like brought the makeup to another level of full drag face.
But so do you think that there's a level of shame with being a lockdown queen?
I noticed it a little bit when, for example, on Drag Race, someone says, oh, so you're a lockdown queen. Okay. Just like that kind of thing. And I mean, it just feels like if lockdown hadn't happened, would you really have been a drag queen? Or is it just an opportunistic moment that you had the time?
So you're not like really passionate about this. You fell into it because you had nothing better to do at home.
Like possibly a subconscious thought in some people could be that.
Oh, how interesting.
I don't think that, but maybe.
People are such schmucks, aren't they? They just find a reason to like hate on anyone for anything.
Well, you know what? Anyone who does anything needed something. There was a catalyst at some point for someone.
Some impetus. Yeah.
Let's say you had a near-death experience and that's what drove you to pursue that one thing that you've always wanted to do. That was an opportunity that made you realize, okay.
Oh, so you're just a near-death experience queen then, is that what you're saying?
I love that. Oh, near-death experience queen. Oh, I've seen you before.
Right. Okay. So you were keeping yourself busy in lockdown.
Yeah.
Was that enough? Were you just like, okay, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. I'll just get on with it? Or was there soul searching?
Oh, there was soul searching. And between the lockdowns, it was like double celebration because we could, and yes, there were restrictions and everything, but I think we squeezed so much going out into those weeks or months or however long it was between the lockdowns that in a way it was like, okay, go, do your research about nightlife, drag, performance art, community, learn about life, grow as an adult, and then go away and let it process for a few weeks or however long it was. So I actually thought it was quite a good time for me to grow as an artist, despite sitting at home. But I was studying music, I was watching, a lot of performances or shows, and I tried to watch things that I would learn from, and I tried to write ideas down as they came up because, I said, no, I don't want to just sit at home, which I did for a large portion of it. Like, it's not like we had to grow or learn during lockdown, but there were little bursts of moments when I felt inspired, and I use this now and come up with ideas and film some little, I started filming little reels, kind of TikTok reels of myself in drag or transformation videos or whatever, just to create some kind of output because the stage didn't exist and I'd never been a social media queen or someone who was huge on social media, but I thought this is our stage right now, so use it and just force myself to put things out as cringy as they were. But sometimes you have to push past cringe mountain.
What was the cringiest?
There was one when I was dancing like a really cool looking boy to try and make it look like, yeah, I'm a cool dude, and then I flipped my hair and then I was looking like a queen. But when I look at myself, I'm like, oh my God, cringe. You're looking like you're acting like this straight skater dude, which I am not. I don't know if you can tell. So that was probably one of the cringier ones.
God, the things that social media makes us do, all this like need for attention and affection from strangers.
But then in between, as the breaks between the lockdowns would happen, I'd go to more shows, and it was this like, it kind of unified us, or at least the queer community in the north of Melbourne kind of felt really connected to each other. And I made a lot of friends with not only other people going out, but artists. And I loved just on Thursday night, I think it was, I can't remember what the night was called, but they would often have like emerging queens do spots and perform. And this wonderful trans queen icon called Aisha Buffet would host the night, and I'd see a lot of the work being put on. And there was a lot of diverse work. Like there was a lot of AFAB artists performing, drag kings, like non-binary artists performing, and this kind of work I hadn't seen much in Sydney. And so I was really getting educated on what can be done in the drag space and how there are no rules. And as soon as you put rules on, like it has to be a cis man who wears a breastplate and has a big ass and big hair or whatever and looks really womanly, like as soon as you put those rules on, I think that's the death of creativity, and we just become a homogenized like art form, which will just slowly trickle down the drain.
Shall we talk a bit about that art form then?
Yeah.
I know you don't want to be labelled a lockdown queen, and you got into it before then. What was the thing that made you go, maybe I should try this. Maybe this is something I want to explore?
When soul searching for what I was supposed to be stepping into in my life, I feel strongly about we should always look at ourselves as a child and what made your heart sing or tinkle as a child, and explore that in whatever form it comes in as an adult. So, if you were just stuck behind a computer and you loved doing all these, I don't know, like coding things as a child, there's a high chance that you have this infinity for IT work and you can just like excel at that. For me, I would set up a camera. I would put on a wig that my mum bought me, a long blonde wig. I would wear my mum's, the most sparkly sequins outfit she had in her wardrobe, which was not much. It was this like kind of brown, like stoned top and skirt, which were not the same, but they kind of matched. So I was like, I'm putting this outfit together, and her chunky heeled boot. And I would lip sync and sing live to 99% Cher songs. So her entire concert, the farewell tour, I would lip sync to that in front of a camera.
Which farewell tour?
I know, right? I know. the official farewell tour, the one from, 2006 or 5 or something. The one where she says, "Follow this, you bitches," to Britney and J-Lo, when she's like, "I want them all to know that this is how you do a concert." Iconic. Just iconic. And I mean, it doesn't get more telling that you need to be a drag queen than if you put a wig and heel on and you lip sync to a Cher concert. Like, hello. It's telling.
Oh, yeah, okay. But you did that when you were a child, and then at some point you put it away. You weren't doing it anymore. Then you went to school, you studied, you did all these other things. And then something brought you back to it. Do you remember, like, what the thing that brought you back to it was?
You become a self-conscious teenager and you just want to follow the mainstream. And then on top of that, when you become you go to drama school and you want to, I guess, become a serious actor or artist in some way. And drag, it hasn't always had this reputable reputation. It's often lived in the misfits bracket. It's lived in the other bracket. And when I was in that young self-conscious phase, I was just trying to fit in and avoiding any thoughts of wanting to do that kind of work. I think it was just with age and exploring what my heart wanted to do or could do. And I knew that there was something about playing with femininity for me, or even androgyny and energy that wasn't just a gender binary, and playing with that on stage in a performance way, and also being a singer, I knew I had to incorporate that somehow. And so I knew my calling was in drag. I think I just ignored it for a long time. And in a way, the time spent pondering on what my life's purpose is during lockdown was important. And I listened to a lot of podcasts and YouTube videos about how do you find out what you need to do in life, like how to find your passion, those kinds of things. And often it would lead back to just try lots of different things. And when you find yourself flowing in one of them, continue with that. And I knew that was drag. I always knew it.
So was there like a big moment where you were like, yes, this is it? Or was it just a number of smaller events that made you go, yeah.
It was a soft launch. It was gradual. It was, honestly, years. It took years to find it, but I'm glad it did, because I didn't just look at one form of drag and say, that's what I want, and that's been put on me. So it's been an exciting journey, and I'm still discovering so much about what I like to do. I love singing live. I really see myself as, I feel like a singer. In my heart, I'm a singer. And so I feel like I have to honor that by bringing it to the stage.
It is funny though, isn't it, that like in the olden days, like before there were YouTube tutorials and so much visibility for drag queens, it would just take someone a really long time to figure out and experiment and try things and do things and see what works, see what doesn't work, and then build their character. But nowadays, you could just watch a few videos and then be like, right, well, that's how I paint my face now, because that's how I got taught on that one video that happened to come up when I Googled it, which is a bit weird.
It's incredible. I know. I have such respect for people who ended up pursuing something like drag in a time where there wasn't education or information, or you couldn't learn how to do all these things. And there wasn't an infinite supply of wig stylists. I mean, there still isn't, but now there's a whole, you can buy wigs from across the world online. You just click order and it's at your house, a few weeks later, from some of the best wig stylists in the world. It's crazy. But at the same time, I don't think you can just easily be able to paint a face like bam. I watched a lot of YouTube tutorials, and I tell you, my first probably 30 face paints were shocking. Shocking.
Oh,
and
okay. I might be oversimplifying.
So you still have to, I guess, had to do the time, but for sure, the information that we've got access to now and all the queens and drag artists doing YouTube tutorials is incredible. It's amazing.
But, okay, and so on this drag journey, look, I appreciate what you're saying in terms of it being a journey. Oh, I hate using that word. I'm really sorry. But like that kind of gradual leaning into an exploration. But do you remember the first time you described yourself as a drag artist?
I don't actually remember. I don't know if I ever drag queen. Because still, I call myself a cabaret queen a lot now, or I say drag artist, and I never really related that much to drag queen as a title, And so...
Oh, did I say drag queen? Sorry. I just meant...
No, you didn't. You said drag artist.
Oh, okay.
You did say drag artist. I'm just thinking... I actually have not thought about this. When was the first time I felt like a drag artist?
Shall I talk now, since you're thinking? I guess the reason...
Please.
The reason that I ask is because I'm sensing from you, based on the conversation that we've had, and I think actually you've explicitly said it, so I don't know why I'm like, ooh, I'm picking up. I think you've said like that there was a stigma around being a drag artist, around identifying in that way, and so you shied away from that for a while. And I'm asking the question just to get a better sense of what changed.
I think you're right. I think it has to do with Rainbow as well as a venue. It felt like I could go there, I could perform in drag, and it wasn't like a drag bingo night at Molly's, or it wasn't a commercial drag lip sync with a death drop at Circuit, which I felt like I was like, that's not me as a drag queen. I respect the work they do so much, but it didn't feel like that's what I was. And so that's why I didn't feel connected to that. But Rainbow had this space of, it's a bit more experimental, or try your art form, whatever that is. And so I felt really safe to put on the drag and go to Rainbow and, sing or host or whatever. And so I think that space actually had a lot to do with it. And funny enough, my partner, who also studied music theatre, but here in Melbourne, he has also gone into being a drag artist who sings live. So we have a very similar career, but we couldn't be more different as well. He got his roots started at Rainbow as well, and he did his first drag act at Rainbow. And that's why it has such a special place in our hearts, because we both...
But you weren't together then?
No, didn't know each other. And we didn't actually meet at Rainbow, even though many times we have since discovered we were at Rainbow on the same night.
Could we just lie and say that you did so we can fit in with the theme of the show?
I know. Wouldn't that be cute? Wouldn't that be cute? Well, I definitely saw him perform or something, because he performed on nights when I was there for sure. And yeah, and then we met, I guess, honestly, a year or 6 months later, and got together, and then have later discovered that we had so many crossovers.
What's it like? You might not be able to compare this to anything. What's it like having two performers in a relationship?
It's great. Honestly, it can be, obviously, as you can imagine, it can have its ups and downs, but we are...
No, I can't imagine. Can you elaborate on that point?
Oh, God. We're never jealous of each other. We're never, try to one-up each other. We're extremely supportive and caring. We're both so sensitive, and I think that works really well. Neither of us are catty or bitchy, and, we can be sassy for sure, but we're very caring of each other, and we support each other's work so much. And then we're also so different. Iva Rosebud she sings live, yes, she does drag, but it's got this kind of edge to it that's cool, and she's got a mustache, and she gets naked, and it's avant-garde. And I do a bit more comedy, and it's more spoken, and with songs that are a bit more campy and big. And so they're very different, which is why we never hugely cross over, and we both have found our stream in the drag world. So it's cool.
And it must be nice to not have to explain things, because they just know how the industry works or how such and such works. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, she has a handful of amazing costumes and wigs, and those are her costumes. They're fantastic. I'm a hoarder, so I buy a lot of stuff. And she's always saying to me, stop hoarding, stop having all this stuff, throw away those heels, you don't need them. And who ends up using them? She does. So I know, she uses all my stuff, and she always says, I'll get rid of it.
Oh, so she's like, I'll just take it to the op shop, I'll get rid of it for you, and then 3 weeks later you find it in the cupboard, and
I know,
that's clever.
Genius, isn't it? And because Lockie by days is a gardener and landscaper, he's a bit rough and ready, and so they always end up getting a bit, tattered or damaged. And so any fights we ever have is about me saying, you're not looking after my things.
But okay, so do you make out in this relationship? Do you get to steal clothes as well, or is it just all of your clothes going one way?
I can't fit her clothes. She's so lean, and I'm naturally padded around, particularly the arse area, and nothing goes over my juicy couture ass.
See, this is the annoying stereotype about queer couples, is that you double your wardrobe when you get with them. But I swear, every single one, there's one person who fits the other one's clothes, and then the other one who just has to realise that all their jumpers are going missing.
It's so rude. Because he's got such stylish things, and I've got real daggy wardrobe, but somehow when he wears my daggy wardrobe, he makes it look cool.
Oh, I fucking hate that. Oh my God, I hate that when that happens.
So rude.
Like
Right.
now I can never wear this in public because you've worn it and you look fucking amazing and everyone's going to think I'm a second-rate version of you. Brilliant.
There's some things that I just can't wear anymore. Like genuinely, I can't wear them anymore because I'm like, you just look so much better in them, and now I feel like I'm wearing your clothes. But somehow I ended up buying them for myself. Now they're gone.
Anyway.
So back to Rainbow.
Oh, good. Thank you. I was going to take us back there. Thank you for doing my job.
Well, it's interesting because anyone from Melbourne who'd be listening, or, you know, you just bring up Rainbow, it was a kind of a scandalous end to the venue. Obviously, this podcast is about lost spaces, and Rainbow is a lost space. It's one of the biggest tragedies, in my opinion, because it was owned by this guy who was not from the queer community. He would always like hang around the place. He was this older guy. And I always thought he was very sweet. He barely spoke any English, and he would just kind of nod and sometimes bring out shots to people. But we later learned that there were some tendencies towards not paying artists properly. It was kind of queer-phobic rhetoric, and ended up not treating the queer community with the respect that they needed and deserved, and actually just like a bare minimum. There was someone let go on an unfair grounds, like a manager who everyone in Melbourne respected so much, and that kind of thing. And so people started boycotting the venue, which I was a part of. I said, I can't go there in my right mind to support this venue, which has been treating my fellow queers poorly. And it's since collapsed. And a lot of people would still go to do gigs because obviously you have to do a gig. Beggars can't be choosers. But it's really just like, you got to do a gig, you know. So people weren't getting upset with artists who were doing gigs there, but they were doing gigs to no audiences. So it was not a vibe, and the venue ended up closing. And so it only existed for, I think it was a 3 or 4 year period. And everyone ended up going there, and it was such a safe haven for so many artists and people who went out and queer folk who just wanted to find something that felt a bit more diverse and inclusive. But it ended up having this tragic ending, which was so sad, and everyone still misses Rainbow so much.
But so given what you've just told me, what was your response when you found out it was closing?
At that point in time, it had been a few months. People were boycotting it already, and so the writing was on the wall. Like, no one was ever going to come back to it. To have a comeback, it would have been impossible. There was a statement released. I mean, Fernando, the owner, wrote on, you know, Facebook this big thing about how, I'm sorry, it was a misunderstanding. Like, I never fired that person. Like, it was just, I was bringing in another manager to help, blah, 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 blah. But it felt like, to the queer community who were involved, it felt like it was a bit gaslighting them into feeling like their grounds for leaving was unfounded. Like, he was making it sound like, you know, I never did that. But they were like, no, you did, and we can't accept that. And so it's this really like messy time, and it's really sad that it ended, and it's a shame, but I guess it had to happen because a queer space isn't safe if it's run by people who are, you know, I guess transphobic or whatever. But when you think about so many people who own venues, there's some real dodgy people out there. As long as they're not involved, I guess, take their money and run. Or what do you do? I don't know the answer. What would you do?
But I don't think you've answered my question.
Oh, okay, yes.
What was your response? How did you feel?
I was very sad. And a part of my brain tried to justify why we should try and keep making it work. I was talking to my friends in many conversations like, shouldn't we just, you know, accept the apology and go back to having this space, which is so magical? And then, obviously, upon reflection, like, it would never have worked. Like, if everyone came back and tried to negotiate this thing, like, it wouldn't have worked. But I was very sad, and I guess a part of me hoped that we could fix it and bring it back. I still miss it a lot because I'm like, I feel like I haven't got anywhere to go to just, because you could go there and have a beer and chat. It felt like both a bar and it had like a small club energy where there was a stage with performances. Like there's nowhere else. It's either a club or it's a bar, and it kind of hit that spot in the middle of the two.
So what do you think Melbourne lost when it lost Rainbow?
For me and my fellow artists, it lost a space where we could create work that was really interesting and diverse, and you never knew what you were going to see. I was inspired by a lot of performances I saw there, things that I couldn't even imagine in a nightclub space. And it also lost a community hub where you would always run into someone you knew. You'd have fat chats with someone in the smoking alley at the back.
Wait, did you just say
You know,
fat
they
chat?
had events. Yeah.
Can you just explain what a fat chat is very quickly? Is it like a deep and meaningful?
Oh, yeah, it must be an Australian thing. Fat chat is just a yarn with someone, and it could be deep and meaningful, or it could just be you're really into a topic and you just like
Just
talk
get
about
into
it
it.
for
Okay,
an hour.
okay.
Just get into it. Yeah.
Sorry, I threw you off course. So it was a place where lots of community
No, I love
hub.
it.
You lost a community hub, yes. So then,
It's a community hub.
so what did you lose?
There's people that I actually don't see because I would only see them at Rainbow. Like, you know, you've got friends that you make in the nightlife, and you could say, oh, they're just transient friends and they're not necessarily your people for life. But I really valued those friendships that I would just kind of run into and then have some fat chats with, you know, and then see them again next week at Rainbow or the following week or whatever. Actually, there is one or two people that I made friends with in this nightlife space, and then we became obviously social media friends, and we continued a friendship. And, you know, they came to my housewarming here in Yarraville a few months ago, and that friendship continued beyond the nightlife. But I do miss those random friendships or the random connections that I probably wouldn't be friends with them day to day, but we had that connection at Rainbow.
I'm going to ask you a question now. And like, you're absolutely within your rights to be like, I have no clue. Just shut up. Let's move on. But you've just sparked something in me with what you've said. The thing about friendships is it's so random. Like, it is so random. And I don't know what the magic ingredient is that takes someone from being that kind of acquaintance person that you run into and you're like, hey, it's really great catching up. Let's have a chat. Let's find out what you've been up to. And then taking that to the next step of like actually being friends and actually staying in touch. And there's like no rhyme or reason. It's just like some random thing. Or is there something?
I've actually been thinking about this a lot because, as I was telling you, I think before we started recording, I went to this big music festival, Strawberry Fields Festival, on the weekend and performed, but also had a great time dancing to music. Last year, I went as well, and my partner and I, Lockie, we hosted a variety show there, and we made friends with, because it's a pretty straight festival, like, you know, it's not an LGBT festival, and we made friends with the few queerdos that we found because they always gravitate towards each other. And this one in particular, Mitch, who was kind of looking after the stage that we were performing on, kind of hosting a bit on the stage as well. Then we ended up seeing Mitch in Melbourne at this other event. And it was like, oh my God, hi, how are you, babe? Like, do you have fun after Strawberry? Nice to see you. Anyways, Mitch was at the festival again this year and performing with their show Bogus on the same stage as us. And we hung out a bit at the festival. And I remember thinking, okay, I want to make a considered effort to foster a friendship with Mitch and Mitch's partner, Christian, beyond the festival. And so I thought about it. I was like, what is it that lets a friendship go beyond just that nightclub space or the festival space where everyone's a bit intoxicated, or it's, you know, can we actually sit and have a dinner together and have a conversation that's not just over loud music? I was reflecting on it actually just yesterday and today. And I feel like it's when both parties express an interest in a friendship by either reaching out or making it known that we really had a good time hanging out with you. For example, yesterday we just made a little Instagram group chat And Lockie and I sent a video just saying, guys, thanks so much for like letting us hang out with you this weekend. We loved you and we'd love to have dinner sometime and catch up in Melbourne. And I think they were like, we'd love that. Let's for sure do it. And I think now, if we commit to making that happen, then there for sure will be a friendship that blossoms, I think. Or if we just let it fizzle, it won't happen. But if both parties are kind of like showing that they're keen to make it happen, then I feel like, okay, they want to be my friend too. Whereas if we reach out and they're a bit, aloof about it or a bit, yeah, like we'll get in touch or whatever, then I probably wouldn't pursue it as much. But you obviously have to find that rhythm with the people first, because it's not with everyone that you feel like you want to be friends. And I guess you're right. It's this like unspoken thing of, oh yeah, we've got things in common, or we've got a similar sense of humor, or we can make each other laugh or just chat about random things. I don't know what that magical ingredient is, but I feel like maybe it's a combination or a selection of some of those things.
Yeah, because I don't think I tend to think about it too much, but there's lots of people in my life that if I ran into them, I would be like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. Let's have a chat. Let's catch up. Let's find out things. And then I'd be like, cool, brilliant. Caught up. See you later. And I wouldn't be like, we should really hang out sometime, or we should da da da. But then there are some people that I would do that with, but I don't know. It's maybe just me being inconsistent in the way I apply my affection.
No. I would just assume majority of people are like that. I think I know I'm like that. Some people I'm like, I love running into you, but I don't want to spend hours hanging out with you at my house, or, I don't want to have a one-on-one. And I wonder what that is. Could it be a combination of how much you click with them, or do you see some kind of value in the friendship? Because, we are also like creatures
Selfish.
selfish, opportunistic creatures. Like I for sure, if I see someone who I've gotten to know and I find them interesting, but their personality, I'm not like, yes, I want to be a best friend, but maybe I've got something that I can learn from them, or their career, or they're connected. Like my subconscious,
Or they have a yacht.
I think, tells me that I should. Exactly. Like, aren't we just, God, it's horrible creatures.
Yeah. Maybe it's something like that. And even if it's not on a conscious level, there's something that drives you to
Exactly.
pursue friendships with certain people and not others. But I do think it's fascinating. And there are some people as well that, like, on the reverse of that, if they don't make an effort with me, I'm like, not fast. I don't care. I'll run into you again and I'll still be like super friendly with you. But another person who might not make an effort with me, or who might like not respond to my text messages, I would just be like, right, that's it. I don't want anything to do with you anymore because you suck.
You are so right. You're so right. Isn't that funny? It's hard because I'm a bad texter as well. Like I get back to friends way too late. I'll leave it a few days sometimes, and I have this thing where my notifications are all turned off, and I sit down and I go through my messages as like a working task. I can't handle being like buzzed throughout the day and then drawn into my phone throughout the day. I'll get nothing done at all. And so I feel like I'm a bad friend at times in that way. And I'm having to step it up because I can feel some friendships distancing themselves because of that. But at the same time, I have friends that, like my best friend who lives in Sydney, we text and sometimes we get back to each other a week later, 2 weeks later. We'll send a voice message, get back 3 weeks later. And I have no expectations because I trust and I know the friendship is for life. And she, early on, she did say, I wish, she didn't say it about me, she said about her other friend. She's like, he kind of leaves me on red for a few days and then gets back to me later. And I thought, but you guys are going to be friends for life, You're only disappointed if there's an expectation there. And if the expectation is you're friends for life, no matter what, shouldn't you just know that it'll be fine? But then I've had to learn in myself, no, sometimes friends do need that extra bit of love just to reassure them that it is going to be fine. And it is, like, you do care about them, because we take sometimes that for granted. We take friendships for granted, I guess. And I've experienced it with other people a little bit where I'm like, okay, like I'm starting to get a bit like I wish you'd just show that tiniest bit more effort in the friendship.
Yeah, but then there are some people who you're like quite happy. I say you in a general sense, not you specifically. There's some
Yeah,
people that
yeah.
you're just quite happy to just treat you like shit, and like you're not bothered about it at all.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, for sure. Isn't that funny? Yeah. I guess we put friendships into different categories and have different expectations for different people. I feel like it's how it's set up from the start.
Yeah, possibly.
Do you
Yeah.
think?
You just automatically designate them into some category of like, this person's always going to be flaky. I'm going to have to just like get on
Yeah.
this train or abandon this now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
We categorize things. I feel like as humans, we do. We just put it into categories, and friendships are
Yeah,
the same in a
absolutely.
way, I
Yeah.
guess.
I do get mad at myself for my inconsistency in applying these rules to my friendships, though. Like, I don't think it's very fair for me to be uppity at one person when I'm like fine with another person exhibiting the exact same behaviors. Anyway, I need to go and have a word
Really?
with myself.
No, I think give yourself a break. Life is hard enough as it is, and managing friendships is tricky. It's tricky.
It is hard. Anyway, enough about that. So we started this conversation talking about you rocking up in Melbourne, beginning of 2020. When you look back on that version of Jens, what do you admire most about him?
I love that I went out a lot and I said yes to everything. When someone would text me and ask me to go see a show or go see something or go out for a drink, I would just say yes to everything. And I was energetically very open to meeting new people. Now I'm like that inherently, but I'm so focused on, like, I'm kind of in a career chapter at the moment because I'm touring a lot, and for example, I'll be away from Melbourne all of January, February, March, touring my show Skank Sinatra and my other show Madame Martha's with my partner to Adelaide, Perth, Queensland, Newcastle, all around Australia. And I feel like I had to close off a part of my life a little bit, which is the open, frivolous going out part, to be able to commit to that. But what I'm trying to do is find the balance of the two, because I think it's so important also for the art. Like, I've got to go out. Like, this weekend was really good being at this festival. It was good to kind of let loose. It was good to let my mind free a little bit. There was no phone signal because it's out really regional and there's thousands of people, so there's no phone signal.
That's too
I know.
much.
For 4
Too
days.
much. Oh no.
4 days, no phone signal. It's on this big river, the Murray River, which is incredible. Like, it just has this energy of like Indigenous people have called this area home for thousands of years, and it's spiritual. And every year for 15 years now, this festival's been going, there's this big doof that goes off. I look at the trees and I'm looking at, they know things, they've seen things. And I have these moments of like, oh, this is what life's really about, connecting, making interesting art. And I had some revelations. So I think it's really important to not just wake up, go to my computer, do all the producing work, and then go, get ready for drag performance or whatever. You got to have those times in between where you let your hair down or connect with friends and are less focused on career things. So that was my revelation this weekend.
Here, I agree. But and staying focused on that version of you, is there anything that he desperately needs to hear?
You just keep doing it. Keep doing it, because you're going to do some really exciting things and it's going to happen. And you want to rush into everything. I just want it to be amazing. I was like, I just want my makeup to be perfect now. I want to have the best wigs now. I want to play these big stages now. But the fact that it, took you years to build on the elements has actually made you a very sensitive artist in a way that isn't thrown together. Or I don't know, it's been a beautiful time of slowly trying different art forms, doing lots of different kinds of work and meeting lots of new people and that all adds to your palette. So keep doing it because it'll come to fruition in a really beautiful way.
Here, here again. Here, here's all around.
Here, 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 here.
And that's it. Us, again. Another week over. Another conversation over. Another week. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And if you did, and you want to find out more about Jens, then I would encourage you to go and follow him on Instagram at Jens Radda. I'll also make sure that I share details about his website and where else you can find him in the show notes for this episode. Whilst you're there, if you fancy, why not follow Lost Spaces Pod on Instagram and TikTok and see footage from this very conversation. I'll make sure that I'll be sharing Reels or TikToks throughout the week. Reels or TikToks, they're both kind of the same thing, but they have different names and it's very confusing. Anyway, thank you once more for joining us. I hope that I see you next week. And until then, have a fantastic week.